The story you are about to hear, The Three Languages, comes from the brothers Grimm. Like many tales in that tradition, it is simple on the surface and strange in its depths. It tells of a nobleman's son, a boy who cannot learn, who is cast out, who listens to the voices of animals, and who, in the end, is crowned pope. At first glance, it seems like a classic fairy tale of misunderstanding and reversal. The fool turns out to be wise, the rejected son becomes the savior, and those who scorned him are left behind. In many traditional readings, this is a parable of patience, humility, or divine election, a reminder that wisdom may come from unexpected places, and that the world often misjudges those with unconventional gifts. All of that is true, but it is not all. What this story offers, when listened to more closely, is not just a lesson but a structure, a movement, a series of transformations in how knowledge, meaning, and identity are formed. It is not just a story about a boy who changes. It is a story about the shifting relationships between the one who knows, the one who listens, and the world they belong to, or don't. In this retelling, we read the story through a sequence of patterns, what we call triads. Each triad describes a relationship between three elements in the story: a person, a force, and a context. Sometimes these three are in harmony. Sometimes one overpowers or betrays the others. Sometimes they turn inward, sometimes they collapse. But each moment in the story can be seen as one of these patterns, and each pattern reveals something about what's really changing beneath the plot. You don't need to know the system in advance. You only need to listen. We'll follow the story step by step, pausing along the way to mark each shift, from balance to rupture, from rejection to transformation, from silence to speech. Each section is named by its pattern, not to distract from the story, but to help us hear its deeper voice. This is a tale about what it means to learn in a world that doesn't know how to listen, about what it means to carry knowledge that no one else can recognize, about how understanding moves, not in straight lines but in spirals, reversals, and sudden convergences. So we begin not with triumph, but with a failure, a boy who cannot learn, and a father who cannot see. From there, the world begins to move. In the quiet order of a noble house in Switzerland, there lived an aged count, a man who held position, pride, and the weight of tradition. He had one son, his only heir. But the first thing the story tells us is this: an aged count once lived in Switzerland who had an only son, but he was stupid and could learn nothing. It's a strange way to begin a tale, with failure already assumed and with no villain, only limitation. The father is not cruel, and the son is not wicked. Still, the arrangement between them is strained. The father expects to pass on his knowledge as noblemen do. The son, however, is unable to receive it. The father teaches, the son does not learn. Yet the structure of their world, the roles of father, son, and the cultural expectations around education still holds. Everything is in place even if nothing is working. It is a fragile balance, but a balance nonetheless. A household where disappointment lives alongside duty, where authority is still recognized even as it fails to take effect. But such balance cannot last. One day the father says what he has long thought: "Hark thee, my son, I can get nothing into thy head, let me try as I will." With these words the quiet tension breaks. This is no longer simply a slow child and a patient father. This is now failure, declared aloud. The father sees that no matter how hard he tries, the son remains unmoved. And in that realization, something collapses. The father's authority, which was rooted in his ability to teach and shape his heir, falters. The son's inadequacy is no longer a problem to solve. It becomes a fixed identity, something inherent and immovable. And more than that, the entire pattern of noble inheritance, the long-trusted system of passing knowledge from one generation to the next, seems to crumble under the weight of this one boy's silence. And so, unable to fix the matter within the walls of his own house, the count decides the solution must lie elsewhere. The boy will be sent away to a master of learning, a man of reputation. Let someone else try. Let the problem pass into other hands. The boy is sent into a strange town. He lives there for a full year and then returns. His father meets him perhaps with renewed hope, perhaps with guarded expectation. He asks, "What hast thou learnt?" "Father, I have learnt what the dogs say when they bark." It is not the answer the Count expected, but the boy speaks it with sincerity. A year of study, and he has learned to understand the voices of dogs. Not Latin, not logic, but something older, something stranger. Still, the father does not give up. He sends him again, to a second master, more distant, perhaps more renowned. Another year passes. The boy returns, and once more his father asks what he has learned. "Father, I have learnt what the birds say." This too seems absurd to the father, but something is taking shape. What the boy is learning lies outside the world his father understands. Yet it is learning all the same. First the speech of dogs, then the language of birds, earth then sky. There is a hidden progression here. Not a refusal of knowledge, but a reorientation toward a different kind of wisdom. The boy is learning to hear what others do not. He is gaining a kind of fluency, not in human tongues, but in the languages of life itself. He is not empty, he is beginning to awaken. Gap 2s. But the father does not see awakening. He sees only failure deepening. And this time, his anger boils over. "O thou lost man, thou hast spent the precious time and learnt nothing. Art thou not ashamed to appear before mine eyes?" This is no longer disappointment. It is rejection. The father has waited, invested, and hoped, and he now believes it has all come to nothing. He hears his son speak of animals, and he sees not a mystic, not a seer, but a fool. In his eyes, the boy has wasted not only his own time, but the time of everyone who tried to save him. The more the boy speaks of these new languages, the more deeply the father believes he is lost. What the son is beginning to build, a new way of listening, a bridge to the world beyond speech, is invisible to the man who raised him. And so, each time the boy returns with insight, he is misunderstood more completely. His progress does not look like learning. It looks like madness. The father's world has no space for such knowledge. And the more the boy tries to share it, the more it confirms the father's worst fear, that his son has not only failed to become what he was meant to be, he may never have belonged to this world at all. The father's patience, already worn thin, gives way to a final condition. "One last effort, with the most dire of consequences, I will send thee to a third master. But if thou learnest nothing this time also, I will no longer be thy father." The line has been drawn. This is not a suggestion, but a final test. The old Count has reached the end of what he can tolerate. What was once a project of love and legacy has become a burden of shame. He offers the boy one more chance, but with it comes a threat. Fail again, and you will no longer belong. The son goes, and he learns again. A year passes. He returns, and his father, for the last time, asks what he has gained. "Dear father, I have this year learnt what the frogs croak." Frogs, not just creatures of the earth or air, but of both. Beings who live between worlds. They inhabit the marsh, the place between water and land, between clarity and obscurity. The speech of frogs is not song but croak, low, echoing, difficult to interpret. If dogs taught the boy loyalty and birds taught him flight, frogs now speak in riddles. This is the most obscure of his learnings, and also the most potent. Something more is stirring, the pattern is completing. The animals of land, sky, and water have spoken to him, and he has listened. He has built a strange fluency, not just with animals, but with nature's deeper rhythms. What the son has now is not merely information. It is destiny, though he does not yet know it. But the world he returns to is not ready to hear. The father had set a condition. The boy has fulfilled it in spirit, but not in form. The father's reaction is no longer shock or anger, it is finality. Then the father fell into the most furious anger, sprang up, called his people thither and said, "This man is no longer my son. I drive him forth and command you to take him out into the forest and kill him." And so the bond is broken, not just symbolically, but by decree. The father does not simply disown him, he orders his death. The transformation is brutal and irreversible. What was once a family matter has become an act of expulsion. The boy is cast out like a cursed thing, a flaw in the lineage that must be erased. But the men who are sent to carry out the order do not follow it. Perhaps they see something in the boy that the father cannot. Or perhaps they simply cannot bring themselves to kill one who is so quiet, so strange, and so harmless. So instead they deceive the old man. They took him forth. But when they should have killed him, they could not do it for pity and let him go. And they cut the eyes and the tongue out of a deer that they might carry them to the old man as a token. A false death is staged, and the son disappears. To the father he is gone forever. To the world he is as good as dead. But the truth is more complex. He has not been killed, but he has been erased. His place in the house, in the lineage, in the name, all of it has been taken from him. What he carries now, the ability to understand the creatures of earth, air, and marsh, no longer has any social home. He belongs nowhere. This is the moment where exile becomes sacred. His learning has cost him everything, and yet it is the one thing that now sets him apart. He walks not into death, but into the unknown, a world that does not expect him and does not remember his name. And so the boy, no longer a boy and no longer a son, begins to wander. He has no purpose, no place, and no guide. But after some time, he comes to the edge of something strange. The youth wandered on, and after some time came to a fortress where he begged for a night's lodging. "Yes," said the lord of the castle, "if thou wilt pass the night down there in the old tower, go thither. But I warn thee, it is at the peril of thy life, for it is full of wild dogs which bark and howl without stopping, and at certain hours a man has to be given to them, whom they at once devour." This is no ordinary trial. The tower is not a place of reason. It is a mythic threshold, filled with sound, madness, and the unrelenting presence of cursed dogs. Every so often, a man is sacrificed to them, and no one knows why. The region lives in fear of the tower, and yet no one can silence it. Here the boy enters not just a place of danger, but a place outside logic. This tower is not governed by rules. It is a closed system, full of noise and ritual beyond the reach of ordinary solutions. And yet, it is here, in this non-linear space, that his strange education will finally meet its purpose. He does not hesitate. The youth, however, was without fear, and said, "Just let me go down to the barking dogs and give me something that I can throw to them. They will do nothing to harm me." He is calm. He knows something the others do not. Where others hear only barking, he hears meaning. Where others see monsters, he sees speakers. No one in the district has been able to stop the curse. No action has worked. No voice has reached through the howling. The whole district was in sorrow and dismay because of them. And yet, no one could do anything to stop this. The people have grown numb in the face of the tower. They offer up victims, but they do not understand the crime. The curse has become part of life, a tragic feature of the land, not a problem to be solved. And so they agree to the youth's request. They give him food for the beasts and lead him down. They let him down to the tower. He descends alone. No one goes with him. No one expects him to return. It is not just bravery they lack. It is imagination. They cannot conceive that anyone could enter the tower and survive. They have forgotten how to interpret the world they live in. But the boy has not. He has heard the dogs before. He has understood them. And now, the very thing that once marked him as a failure, the language no one believed in, becomes the one bridge between curse and cure. Morning comes. The boy, who had been sent into the tower as a sacrifice, steps out alive. More than that, changed. He has not merely survived the night, but returned with knowledge no one else possessed. Next morning, to the astonishment of everyone, he came out again safe and unharmed, and said to the lord of the castle, "The dogs have revealed to me, in their own language, why they dwell there, and bring evil on the land. They are bewitched, and are obliged to watch over a great treasure which is below in the tower, and they can have no rest until it is taken away, and I have likewise learnt from their discourse how that is to be done." At last the years of learning, dismissed, rejected, even punished, find their use. The dogs that others feared were not monsters. They were prisoners, and only one who could listen, one who had learned their language, could hear the truth, that they were cursed, that a treasure lay hidden beneath them, and that the curse would not lift until someone both heard and acted. He descends again, not in fear, but in clarity, and follows their instructions. He went down again, and as he knew what he had to do, he did it thoroughly, and brought a chest full of gold out with him. What was once invisible, hidden beneath barking, beneath violence, beneath fear, is now revealed. The treasure is literal, yes, but also symbolic. It is the reward that comes from understanding what others refuse to hear. The son's gift is not a novelty, it is a form of redemption, not only for him but for the land itself. His listening restores order. Now he is not the fool who wasted his years, he is the one who brought peace. What was once excluded has become central. He is the key the world forgot it needed. And then, silence. The howling of the wild dogs was henceforth heard no more. They had disappeared, and the country was freed from the trouble. The curse is lifted, the land is calm, and the dogs, those fierce guardians of secret suffering, are gone. There is no more barking, no more howling, but their disappearance, while a relief, carries a strange echo of loss. They had been feared, yes, but they were also the bearers of meaning. Their suffering was the symptom of something buried, something that needed to be brought to light. And now that they are gone, that function is gone too. The treasure is recovered, the curse is broken, but the dogs, and the message they carried, vanish. This is often the cost of resolution. The very forces that teach and reveal are no longer needed once the lesson is complete. The wildness that demanded attention is silenced. The world is restored, but only because something has disappeared. And the one who understands this most fully is the one who listened to them in the first place. Time passes. The land is quiet. The treasure has been recovered. The boy, or the young man now, might have stayed, claimed a reward, lived among those who now honor him. But instead, he turns his face toward another horizon. After some time, he took it into his head that he would travel to Rome. No one sends him. No one orders this. It is his own decision, the first entirely autonomous act we see from him. He does not explain why. He simply goes. But we sense why. His journey is not over. The languages he has learned have led him deeper and deeper into mystery. He is no longer following his father's will or obeying a master's lesson. He is following something internal, a prompting, a call, perhaps planted long ago in the croak of a frog or the howl of a dog. Something in him knows there is more, and so he begins again, not in exile and not in fear, but in purpose. He walks a path no one has laid for him, and yet a path he was always meant to walk. On the road to Rome, he comes to a marsh. The story slows here, quiets, as though pausing before the next storm. On the way he passed by a marsh in which a number of frogs were sitting croaking. He listens, he understands. These are not the same frogs he once studied, but their language is familiar. What they say is not revealed to us yet, but we are told what it does to him. He listened to them, and when he became aware of what they were saying, he grew very thoughtful and sad. This is not a moment of insight, but of burden. The frogs speak not of the present, but of the future, a future only he can hear. What they reveal touches something deep and heavy in him, something that will not fully unfold until Rome. And so he walks on, carrying words no one else has heard, carrying knowledge that offers no comfort, only gravity. It is a strange kind of negation. He is not turned away, not misunderstood. But what he receives is incomplete. It is prophecy without explanation, clarity that arrives only through wait. What lies ahead is not a choice anymore. It is a fate already spoken, waiting to be fulfilled. The young man, having heard the frog's prophecy, arrives in Rome. He is changed, not by titles or knowledge anyone has taught him, but by the long accumulation of meaning from voices no one else could hear. He enters the city quietly, not yet knowing why he has come. But the answer begins to reveal itself. At last he arrived in Rome, where the Pope had just died, and there was great difficulty as to whom they should appoint as his successor. The heart of the Church is leaderless. The highest position in the spiritual order has become vacant, and no one knows how to fill it. We are told there is great difficulty, and we understand that this means more than bureaucracy. It means spiritual uncertainty, no obvious heir, no clear process. The world's most sacred structure is suspended in confusion. This moment is deeply harmonic, though in a hidden way. The absence of leadership in Rome aligns with the presence of knowledge in the one who has just arrived. He does not know what is about to happen, but everything he has learned and suffered is leading him to a place no one else can reach. And yet, in that convergence, we find not clarity, but paralysis. There was great difficulty as to whom they should appoint as his successor. This line repeats and deepens its weight. The death of the Pope has not only left the seat empty, it has left those around it without direction. There is no consensus. No one can see a rightful successor. The institution that once guided the world is itself lost. This is not simple disorder. It is a spiritual dissonance. The Church, which claims divine authority, cannot act without a sign. The absence of leadership becomes more than political. It is metaphysical. And into this gap, this silence of sacred guidance, walks the boy who has spent his life listening to voices others dismissed. But still, he is not recognized. He enters quietly. The world does not know it needs him yet. And even he, carrying the frog's words in his heart, does not yet know how those words will take form. And then, as though the unseen forces of the world had been waiting for perfect alignment, it happens. They at length agreed that the person should be chosen as Pope, who should be distinguished by some divine and miraculous token. The Church, unable to decide, turns to miracle. It seeks a sign, not from logic nor lineage, but from heaven itself. And at the exact moment this decision is made, just as that was decided on, the young count entered into the church, and suddenly 2 snow-white doves flew on his shoulders and remained sitting there. The sign comes. Not in thunder, not in fire, but in gentleness. 2 doves, white as light, descend upon his shoulders and remain. The Church had called for a miracle, and the miracle arrived. But it is more than they asked for. It is too perfect, too immediate. The doves choose him the moment the call is made. It is a convergence of such precision that it feels unreal. All the voices he has listened to, dog, bird, frog, are now answered by this new pair of messengers. These doves do not speak aloud, but they do speak clearly, and everyone sees it. And yet, even in this miracle, there is rupture. Suddenly 2 snow-white doves flew on his shoulders and remained sitting there. The timing is too exact. The symbol is too overt. This is not how the sacred usually appears, through process, deliberation, or ritual. It arrives instead as a perfect and unsettling sign. This is the paradox of miracles. When they come too clearly, they unseat the ordinary structure they are meant to support. The appearance of the doves bypasses tradition. It overrides human judgment. What should have been a matter of careful discernment is now decided in an instant and not by any human authority. This is divine logic, not human, and it brings not only awe, but disorientation. The Church receives what it asked for, but in a form so immediate that it almost shatters the mechanism built to receive it. Still, the miracle cannot be denied. The signs are too clear, and the Church responds not with skepticism but recognition. The ecclesiastics recognized therein the token from above and asked him on the spot if he would be Pope. The world at last sees what he has been becoming all along. The ecclesiastical authorities bow before the sign and before the boy who is no longer a boy. They ask him if he will become Pope. He does not leap at the offer. He hesitates. He does not see himself as holy, but the doves do not leave. They remain, speaking not in words but in presence. And so, he was undecided and knew not if he were worthy of this, but the doves counseled him to do it, and at length he said yes. Here the elements combine: human doubt, divine sign, and institutional need. All 3 meet not in certainty, but in an answer drawn from hesitation. It is not power that brings him to accept the role. It is quiet encouragement, a voice just over the shoulder. And yet that hesitation is not meaningless. It matters that he doubts. He was undecided and knew not if he were worthy of this. This is the last resistance, not from the world, but from within. The prophecy he heard from the frogs, the long path of exile and speech and silence, has all led to this moment. And still he questions whether he is ready. The doves speak to him not with commands but with counsel. His final assent is not forced, and it is offered. And this choice, this small space of doubt, makes the acceptance real, but the doubt leaves a trace. The very moment of fulfillment is tinged with uncertainty. The journey does not erase the scars of being unheard, unloved, exiled. They remain even here at the threshold of glory. The young man, once dismissed, disowned, and nearly destroyed, now stands before the highest altar of the church. He has been chosen not by vote, not by lineage, but by the descent of a divine sign. And now the transformation must be sealed. Then was he anointed and consecrated, and thus was fulfilled what he had heard from the frogs on his way, which had so affected him, that he was to be His Holiness the Pope. The frogs long ago croaked their strange message in the marsh, and he had understood it, not completely, not at the time, but enough to feel the weight of it. Now, standing before the world, the meaning has become clear. This moment completes the arc. What was once cryptic has unfolded. What was once animal speech is now divine confirmation. The voice of the frogs, heard in exile, reaches its final echo in the ritual of consecration. All the elements, the animals, the exile, the silence, the gifts rejected and misunderstood, come together in a single act. He is anointed. He is made Pope. The world now confirms what only the marsh had whispered. It is not simply a coronation, it is the closing of a circle, the moment when private knowledge becomes public truth. But even in this moment of fulfillment, the story does not let us forget what it cost. What he had heard from the frogs on his way, which had so affected him. He had known this was coming. And because he knew, he had carried the weight of it, the sadness, the sorrow, the deep unease of hearing one's destiny before the world is ready to see it. This is the paradox of prophecy. It offers clarity, but no comfort. It gives truth, but without the power to make others believe. The frogs had spoken his future, and he had heard them. But for all the time between that marsh and this anointing, he had walked alone in that knowledge. Even now, as the world celebrates him, we feel that solitude lingering. He has not just arrived, he has endured. But the story is not yet done. There is one more test, one final crisis that arrives not before glory, but within it. Then he had to sing a mass, and did not know one word of it. The moment of triumph turns, suddenly, to silence. He is the Pope now, seated at the center of spiritual power. And yet he cannot perform the most basic duty. He does not know the words. All his education, rejected by men but embraced by beasts, has not taught him the liturgy. This is the final exposure. He has been made whole in name, in role, in symbol, but not in language. The structure of the world has caught up to him, but he still carries the absence of a traditional education. It is a stunning moment. The most powerful, spiritual figure in the world cannot speak the sacred words. And in this moment, the entire story threatens to collapse, unless something intervenes. And then it does. But the two doves sat continually on his shoulders and said it all in his ear. They do not leave him. The signs that chose him remain, not only as symbols, but as guides. The doves become his voice. They speak what he cannot, and through them, the Mass is sung. And with that, the final breach is closed. The languages of animals, once deemed useless, now carry the sacred rite. The voices that others never heard now transmit the holiest of prayers. Everything is unified. The dogs, the birds, the frogs, they were never meaningless. They were training him for this moment. The languages of the world have been brought together, not in dominance, but in listening. And through that listening, he has become the bridge between creation and the sacred. He speaks not through his own tongue, but through the world's, and the world answers back. And so the boy who could not learn, who was cast out and nearly killed, who listened to the voices others feared or ignored, becomes the Pope, not by command, but by hearing, not by mastery, but by receiving. This is the shape of the tale. The outermost voice becomes the innermost authority. The world that once rejected him now bends around the truth he carried all along. And the doves, who still speak in his ear, remind us, language is not only what we speak, but what we are willing to hear.